This happened a couple of months ago, and I'm finally feeling safe being alone again. It was around 1:30 p.m. when my dog started barking for me to take him outside. I had put him on his leash and walked outside my first floor apartment, leaving the door unlocked behind me like I had done a million times before. Seriously, I never ever thought twice about it, as I live in a really safe neighborhood in an extremely safe, almost boring town. In my 27 years of living here, nothing had ever tested that sense of security before. My dog is 15 years old, so he moves a little slow and really loves taking his time sniffing around. He'll usually just stop and pee about 3 different times and then take that day as no different. But suddenly, a big white truck filled with lawn equipment slowed down right in front of me.
Hey, make sure you pick up after your dog.
I then looked up and saw a man in his late 40s or so, wearing polarized sunglasses and a bandana around his lower mouth and neck. He just peed. I responded with a little bit of attitude, like, thanks, but I got this. Now drive away. I looked up yet again, and he then gave me a wink and then lowered his bandana to blow me a kiss right before he drives away. This man had instantly made me really uncomfortable. But as a young Hispanic female, I had been pretty used to older Hispanic men being inappropriate like that. They've been doing it for years. It's just a really sad reality. But once again, I didn't really think too much into it. I was walking back to my apartment now when a woman came out of her apartment in the next building over and then stood on her patio, motioning for me to come to her. Now, I've never met this lady in my life before. I had seen her around the complex and she seemed pretty nice enough, but ultimately I didn't really know her. I've watched Dateline before, so I'm definitely not going up to her patio. I asked her what she wanted and she just insisted that I go over there so that she could tell me. I told her that I really needed to bring my dog back inside my apartment, but that maybe I could help her from outside where I was if she just told me. Next thing I know, this woman is now freaking running right toward me. That's when I picked up my dog ready to run home, and that's when she stopped probably about 5 feet away from me, and then she said, "Look, please listen to me. A man walked to your apartment while you were walking your dog. I think he was one of the mowers. I was sitting in my car when I saw him walk in, and I know you live there alone. I called 911 and they're on their way now." I could feel my face burning as I was trying to process what I just heard. I'd watched the man that I had talked to drive away. I didn't see his truck anywhere. How could that be possible? What I didn't realize was that while I was talking to him, he had positioned his truck right in the line of sight of my apartment. I couldn't see my door, so I was totally distracted and looking away while another man had walked right inside my apartment. If my neighbor didn't happen to be sitting in her car while on the phone, I would have walked right into my apartment, completely unaware that someone would be inside of it waiting to do God knows what to me. I'm honestly so thankful that she was so observant even prior to the incident, because she knew that there shouldn't be anyone else in that apartment, and she had a really bad gut feeling that something was wrong. The police arrived not even 5 minutes later and arrested the guy. This guy actually told the police that he had permission to use my restroom, which was freaking obviously not true. Since my door was unlocked and we can't really prove what his intentions were when he entered, he was only charged with trespassing. That's actually a misdemeanor in my state, and he did no jail time, which obviously really freaked me out because this guy knew where I lived. The man driving the truck technically didn't really do anything wrong, but it's really scary to think that they might have been working together. I ended up staying with my parents until we were able to find a legal loophole to get me out of my lease and move out of that apartment ASAP. I moved into a house with an old friend of mine and got a ring system installed that same day. My dog has his own backyard now, my dad mows the lawn for us, and I still sometimes get coffee with the neighbor who called the cops for me. Even to this day, I'm so thankful for her gut feeling. Honestly, if it wasn't for her, God knows what could have happened. I live in a city that has quite a bit of wealth inequality, and it's also a spot where homeless people like to congregate from all over. I live in a pretty decent area in an apartment, and it has a security gate to get into the building. My spouse was feeling pretty sick and convinced me to take the dog out for his final walk of the night, even though I protested that I didn't feel safe doing it. I'm quite short and pretty small. My dog is about 70 pounds but is pretty goofy looking and pretty friendly on the street. And for some weird reason, he's really only protective when we're in the apartment. I wasn't able to find my pepper spray, but the dog was whining, so I went to walk him anyway. I stuck to where the streetlights were on our busy street, and he did his business like usual. I turned around and I noticed a dirty-looking man that was riding a bicycle. He was coming right towards me from out of the dark from behind a building, and then he started yelling things like,
Hey, I'm not gonna hurt you. See, even your doggy likes me. I won't hurt you, I promise.
And then he sped up towards me. I started running with my dog right to the security gate and then keyed in the code as the man got to the embankment and started closing in on me. It was maybe about 10 yards away at that point. I slammed the gate behind me and ran up to my apartment. I never ever leave without my pepper spray, and I don't walk outside the apartment at night anymore. And I mean ever. So I'm a 22-year-old female, and I just moved into this apartment complex in the heart of downtown Baltimore. Tonight was my second night living here, and I went to do the laundry that was on the lower level of the complex, and I decided to use the gym that was also on the lower level while I waited for my clothes to get washed. So I'm in the gym working out, and it's a small room with not really much equipment. I was the only one in there, and I see this guy in the hallway that's right outside just kind of staring at me. I kind of just ignored him and just continued working out until he came into the gym and then gave me a thumbs up, and then he said,
Good job.
I kind of just smiled at him and said thank you. He then comes into the gym and starts getting on the treadmill. I didn't want to be confined in a small space with this guy, so I went into the laundry room and my washer was almost finished. So for the next couple of minutes I decided to just wait and text on my phone. Well, a few minutes later, the same guy comes inside and he went to do his load of clothes. And then he came up to me and he put his phone right in my face and it was on Google Translate and it then read,
You're beautiful.
I had told the man thank you and he just continued to translate for me to read it. He's from Saudi Arabia and he barely spoke any English. He then went on to ask me through the phone if I wanted to be his friend. I kind of have a hard time saying no, so I just kind of shrugged and said okay. Then he asked again through Google Translate for my number. I gave him a fake and he called it right in front of me, and of course my phone didn't ring. He continued to call and still nothing. He told me to wait there in the laundry room while he ran back to the elevators. I started to get a really bad feeling, so I left the laundry room. I waited on the other side of the hallway past the elevators and then turned the corner where he wouldn't see me, and then texted my boyfriend what was happening. The elevator door then opened up and the man comes out and I heard him go into the laundry. I had this really bad gut feeling telling me to run, and I'm never really a frantic person or anything, so I don't really get spooked that easily, but I don't know how to explain it. I just had a really bad feeling. I started to press on the exit button to unlock the door that leads you to outside, but it wasn't budging. From the mirror on the wall, I saw him turn around and saw him head into the gym, and I knew that he was going to check this side next, so I kept frantically pushing on the button and the doors finally unlocked, and then I ran outside. I probably walked around for about 10 minutes on the phone with my boyfriend, just telling him everything that happened. I went to the lobby of my complex and I asked the front lady if she could escort me to the laundry room. She said yes, and then we went. Thankfully the man wasn't there and I was able to put my clothes in the dryer. The lady from the front desk told me to come back and get her when the dryer was done. So about 45 minutes go by and the front desk lady and I went to the laundry room. And guess who's there? The man. He started to do this really creepy smile and was about to say something until he saw who I was with and then became really quiet. I got my clothes and we left, and the guy left too. We all got in the elevator with the lady in between us, and her and I got off on the lobby floor. The reason we got off on the lobby floor was so that she could show me where the other laundry rooms were on the other side of the complex. I then thanked her and went on my way. I waited for the elevator to come down, and when it did and the doors opened, that man came off of it and held the door open for me. I said no and told him that I would wait for the next one. I really didn't want him to know which floor that I lived on. The man got off the elevator and he was pacing back and forth and huffing and puffing. As soon as the next elevator opened, I got on it and then he tried to get on it with me. I immediately got off and then he said to me,
"Come on in. Come inside."
I said no and he started to get really mad at me and then started to walk right towards me. I booked it back to the lobby and to my luck, the lady from the front desk was already heading my way, telling me she had already saw what happened on the security camera. She escorted me to my room and made sure I got home okay. I'm really so thankful that she was there. This probably wouldn't have happened to me if I would have just cut the conversation short with the man. I've never been this freaked out before, and I've never felt this unsafe either. Even though he didn't necessarily do anything wrong to me, it was really just the vibe I got from him. I'm going to get a gym membership that's only a few minutes to walk from my building, and I'm definitely going to use the laundry room that's on the other side of the complex, just so I can lessen the chance of ever having to run into that man ever again. I just really want to avoid him at all costs. This happened in November 2018. I was a 19-year-old woman living alone in a 2-bedroom apartment. I live in a college town that has a significant population but a pretty low crime rate. This kind of thing just doesn't really happen around here, or so I thought. I came home one night after hanging out with my girlfriend, a little intoxicated, and I set my keys down on my kitchen counter. I lose my keys pretty often, so I kinda just told myself at least 10 different times the keys are on the counter before just stumbling off to bed. I woke up at around 8 a.m. the next morning and cleaned my kitchen and living room a little bit before getting ready for an appointment that I had. While I was getting ready to head out the door, I realized that my keys were missing from the counter. I searched my apartment up and down, but I just couldn't find them, so I decided to take an Uber as to not miss my appointment. During my way home, I decided to call my mom and tell her about my missing keys. She suggested that I search my trash because maybe I accidentally threw them away while I was cleaning. As soon as I walked back into my apartment, my stomach sank. My apartment smelled absolutely disgusting. It was a scent that I don't think I can accurately describe or even put into words. It was absolutely revolting, and something just felt really off. I thought that it might have just been because I had some dishes that were in the sink that I just hadn't washed for a couple of days. So I decided to take some time to wash my dishes and then decided to search the trash for my keys. I put on some rubber gloves and laid out trash bags on my living room floor, then dumped all of my trash on top of them and started searching for them. What I found was completely revolting. There was a bag of bird feathers, a pair of soaking wet socks, a clump of gray hair, and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which I hate with a passion, so I just knew it wasn't mine. At this point, I was panicking. I decided to snap a picture and text it to my girlfriend before calling her. "Hello?" She answered, "Amy, I think there's someone hiding in my apartment." I came home and found stuff in my trash that I just know isn't mine. It smells weird and I just have a really bad feeling. I was on the verge of tears and my anxiety was totally through the roof. "Babe, this is just your anxiety talking. I really doubt that there's anyone in your apartment. You live across the street from the stadium and there was a football game last night. Maybe someone was drunk and came into your apartment to just throw some stuff away. Or maybe someone used your trash when you had the Friendsgiving party. Why don't you ask some of your friends who were there?" she said. I knew her explanations didn't really make sense, all things considered, but I wanted to believe them anyways. I kind of just smiled and laughed a little before responding. "Yeah, you're probably right. I'm just being unreasonable. Per usual, right?" I said. "You should really try and get your mind off of things if your anxiety is this bad. Why don't you come to dinner with me and my parents tonight? Take a shower. I'll pick you up. We're going somewhere a little bit fancier, so wear something nice," she said. "Sure, I'd love to. I love you," I said as I hung up the phone. I walked to my bathroom, grabbing a towel and taking off my jeans and underwear before throwing it all in the dryer so that it would be warm when I got out of the shower. Since my apartment had 2 bedrooms and I was the only person living there at the time, I used the spare bedroom to store all my laundry and fancier clothes. It was nearing finals week, so I hadn't really done my laundry for a good minute, and there was a really giant pile of dirty clothes on the floor of that room. All of my fancier sweaters and dresses were hanging in the closet. Still completely butt-ass naked, I headed to the spare bedroom to grab a sweater for dinner with Amy's family. As soon as I opened the door, the bad smell became 100 times worse, to the point that I thought I was going to pass out. I carefully stepped inside and then completely froze, noticing a large tattooed hand sticking out of the pile of the laundry. Now, as a completely naked 19-year-old girl who then walked in on a stranger in her own apartment, the reasonable thing to do would have been to calmly leave the room, get dressed, go outside, and then call 911. However, my immediate reaction was to just scream at the top of my lungs. "What the hell? Who are you? What are you doing in my apartment?" I totally shrieked, tears totally streaming right down my face. My entire body was totally consumed with terror. I felt like I couldn't even move. A large, clearly drugged up woman jumped out of the pile of clothes and then faced me, then started screaming, "I have a gun and I will kill you. Don't you dare call the police." I forced myself to move, sprinting to the bathroom and grabbing my phone on the counter as I did so. I slammed the door right behind me and then locked it, falling to my knees while on the floor. The police really terrify me, and so was this woman threatening me if I called them. So, against my better judgment, I dialed my dad's number instead with really shaky hands. Meanwhile, this woman was banging on the door, shrieking and threatening me. "Hello? Let me inside. You whore. Don't you dare call the police. I'll freaking kill you," she continued to scream while pounding on the door. "Dad, there's someone in my apartment. I'm not kidding, do you hear her? She's trying to freaking kill me. Please help me." "You stupid whore, I've been here for 3 freaking days now. I'll freaking kill you." "Angela, what are you doing calling me? Call 911 right now," my dad said. I hung up the phone and took his advice, dialing 911 as fast as possible. As soon as the woman heard me speaking to the operator, she ran outside, slamming the front door right behind her. As I tried explaining what was going on, I got dressed and tried to run outside to see which way she went. When she ran, she also took her trash with her. When the police got there, they asked me for a description of the woman, and we searched my apartment to see if she had taken anything besides the trash. Unsurprisingly, she took all of my prescription drugs for anxiety and ADHD. Yeah, that was pretty fun to explain to my doctor. Besides that, the cops were essentially pretty useless. There was never any kind of follow-up, and as far as I know, they never found her. I moved into my parents' house for a couple of weeks until I could find a new apartment, and I couldn't even enter the building until about a week later. I threw away pretty much everything hygiene related in case she had used it, and then I sanitized just about everything, especially my clothes. While searching that spare bedroom, I found some notebooks that were filled with really crazy writings and black witchcraft, dirty underwear, 3 pairs of car keys that belonged to God knows who, and a ton of food trash. I turned it into the police. So I ended up moving into a 3rd-story apartment, installing automatic keypad locks and security cameras, getting a cat so I felt less alone, and going to therapy, mainly because that situation caused me so much anxiety. For 6 months, I couldn't enter my apartment if I'd gone more than 5 minutes unless I was on the phone with someone. I also still occasionally get nightmares or sometimes swear that I can smell it again. I just really hope to God that I never encounter that woman ever again. She was just so insane. A few years back when I was 19 years old, I had just gotten my very first apartment that was in the basement of an apartment complex. That might sound odd, but a friend's mother talked to the apartment's landlord to find me a cheap place to live. This was in Denver, so it really wasn't that cheap for a 1-bedroom apartment in most places. This will all be relevant later. The basement apartment was a studio that was located at the base of a flight of stairs. It was the only apartment at the bottom of these stairs between the apartment's boiler room and the laundry room. And even farther down, there was a brick hallway with a screen door and a landing before you finally even get to my apartment. The first couple of months of living alone were honestly pretty fine. There was a smoking area up the flight of stairs that led to my apartment. One day I was up there just doing my thing and having a cigarette when a Native American man sat next to me and then also started smoking. He was a resident in the apartment. His name was John. John seemed mostly normal. Maybe a little bit lonely, but nothing really unnerving. He said that he lived alone and that he was an artist. We started to chat until my cigarette was through. I said goodbye to John and then went back downstairs. I would see John pretty occasionally smoking as I was going to or coming from work. He would always just say hi to me and never really gave off any kind of red flags, which makes this all the more creepy. One night when I was sleeping, I woke up to the sound of the doorknob to my apartment jiggling. It was like someone was frantically trying to break the lock. I got out of bed and then immediately grabbed a knife from the kitchenette. If this had been a normal room in the apartment complex, someone would have heard the doorknob rattling, but my apartment was secluded on the subterranean level. I stood right next to the jiggling doorknob and then said, hello? Who's there? No one answered. I looked through the peephole, but it was way too dark to see. I then said in a loud, confident voice, I'm just gonna tell you now, if you come in here, I'm gonna kill you. And I was pretty serious about it too. Back then, I was pretty fearless and in a not so great mental state. I just wanted to explain that because I know some people are going to question my reaction to this. However, the jiggling immediately stopped. Whoever it was booked it back through the screen door right down the hallway and up the dark flight of stairs. I don't really know if they thought I was asleep until then or what, but I think I scared them off. I could see their dark outline go up the stairs through the peephole, but couldn't really make out the person's features. I made a really big mistake that night when I decided not to call the cops. I just felt like it would be a hassle and that it was probably just some drunk idiot causing mischief. My heart was really pounding from the adrenaline, but I felt really confident that I could take care of myself, so I mostly just put the incident right out of my mind. Well, about a week later, late at night around 2 a.m., I then woke up and I realized the door to my apartment was wide open. I was really in shock and I couldn't really process what I was looking at. I walked toward the door, wondering how someone could have come and left like that, making no sound. I remember that my heart was beating furiously and that it was really difficult to breathe. Every footstep I took felt like I was walking further and further into a fatal danger zone. I examined the door and the doorknob had been completely removed from its socket. I really don't know how he managed to break the doorknob out of there without waking me up. I've entertained many possibilities. Maybe he used a knife and carved it out. Maybe it wasn't fastened securely in the first place and he just popped it out on accident. But I mean, it held pretty sturdily when he was jiggling it the week before, so I didn't really get it. I'm a fairly light sleeper, so I just really don't understand how he could have done it. Even to this day, it still really bothers me. There was a really clean hole where the doorknob was mounted to the door, and the doorknob was gone. I never did find it. So, do you remember that kitchen knife that I had threatened the intruder with the week before? Well, it was lying on the ground right next to my bed. Maybe I got up and put it next to me in my sleep. I don't know. It's all still a mystery to me, and that's why this occurrence still bothers me so much. I just can't figure it out. This person had been in my room possibly watching me sleep, and they had just left without doing anything. I guess I'm lucky, but I'll never really know why. I bought a deadbolt for the door and had the doorknob replaced. And since people would probably ask, no, I never called the cops. Like I said, I was in a really bad mental state and didn't really have a lot of energy to care about myself. But that's besides the point. I was really on edge for the next few weeks, but nothing happened until a few weeks later, when the guy tried to break in broad daylight. He was doing his doorknob jiggling routine yet again, and I saw that this time that it was John, and he was completely drunk. I know this because I yelled at him, and he drunkenly scurried back up the stairs like the first time. John was apparently known for having a drinking problem. After that time though, the entire complex knew what he had done, and the owner of the building actually urged me to press charges against him, and I'm pretty sure that they eventually evicted him. However, I never pressed charges. As I said before, I just really didn't care enough to get the police involved. I moved out shortly after. Like I said, the unanswered questions still really haunt me. What did he want? Why did he do this? And why did he pick my place specifically to break into? I guess I'll never really know. Still, John, I could really care less to ever see you again.